this is a very much expanded form, but anyway, we'll be able to bring home the point which is right in front of you. The topic is the thread of life. The thread of life which unite us, all of us, whether you as a human being coming from this part of the world or from the different parts, or even at the interspecies and intergenus level. The thread of life unifying one and all. From where did I pick up this topic? From where did I pick up this title? I take you back to 61 years, and about 9 months back, the year was 1953. 1953, the day was 28th of February. The 28th of February 1953. Somebody just 2 miles away outside Oxford University enters a pub. I hope the students, they all know, the teachers also know, that pub is a beer bar, very popular beer bars in UK, United Kingdom. The name of the pub is Eagle. The name of the person who enters this bar around 10:30 in the morning, maybe for a cup of coffee, says, "Hurrah, we have discovered a secret of life. We have." This is the picture on that very day. It's a wonderful picture, but it has been expanded. But this is 28th February 19, picture taken from that very pub on 28th February 1953. Everyone, about 16 people sitting at that time and around 5-6 more joining, immediately rushed to him and say, "What has happened? What is the secret of life which you have learned?" He says, "We have discovered the secret of life." The first thing. Later on, in a second, in a minute, he says that we have discovered the thread of life. The thread of life. Everyone is surprised to find out that what does this man to say. They say that last week you published a 2-page paper in the Nature. It's 1953. Last week you published, in which 2-page paper you say that there is a chemical which unite all of us, not at the only human level, but at the other species, genera, taxa and kingdom level, and you have written that this is a chemical which is called as a deoxyribonucleic acid. He says, my senior colleague Watson has coined this word, that this is the secret of the life. This is the secret of life. This is the thread of the life. Would you like to see at that very particular moment that how does this man look like, who got the Nobel Prize in 1962 for a joint paper which was published in 1952 with Watson, Crick and Wilson. Let me tell you, since it's a very short presentation, another Nobel laureate in 1961, Max Proust, says that 1953, that this 1953 is Annus Mirabilis. Annus Mirabilis. He says this is Annus Mirabilis. In fact, let me remind you that Annus Mirabilis is the word which was used for 1666 with regard to Newton's discovery on gravity. But he says, forget about physics, forget about other fields, but let us say, so far as the biology is concerned, so far as you and I are concerned, 1953 is Annus Mirabilis. Annus Mirabilis is Latin. That means the year of miracles. Somebody asked Max Proust that why do you say that 1953 is Annus Mirabilis? He says that Queen has been crowned. That's okay, doesn't matter to me. Queen has been crowned. Second thing, he says Mount Everest has been won. Professor Bagla has another thing to talk about so far as the Everest being won. But to me, to you as human beings, interest is that DNA has been unzipped. My dear friends, students, please remember that this marks the start of such a big discovery when it comes to the question of knowing that what chemical is responsible, what is responsible for making me to speak and to you to hear or to do all function which we call it as a biological function or life function. In the next 23 years, look at that, physics, chemistry, molecular biology, information technology, everything combined, and in 1960s, a new science was born which we call it as a modern biology. It's a modern biology. This modern biology has a different concept, different explanation so far as the life is concerned, so far as the explanation of the thread of the life was concerned. Imagine that till today, Aaj, including this year, 228 Nobel Prizes have been announced in medicine, physiology, biology. Out of that, 46 have gone to one field, that is to understand this thread of life commonly studied under the molecular biology, commonly called in the what we call is as genetics. Forget about genetics. It has gone into the question, who am I, why I am here, does my life has a meaning and purpose, does the soul exist, forget about, but how do I connect with my fellow people? This is what they have made one in the last 60 years, one model. That model says that each one of us, look at this gentleman, this man or woman, you can take it anyway, we can reduce that by the way of reduction to nothing but 30 billion cells. Each one of you, Professor Pasi is one example here. We can see it as a nothing but a panorama of 30 billion cells. Each cell in his body has, in your body has 46 chromosomes. Each chromosome, when extended, can form into a 6 feet of a chemical which we call it as a DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, which is formed of 4 alphabets. 4 alphabets, A, T, G, C. I'm going to the fundamentals, but a segment of that one, can you see the glowing light from this place? Can you see the glowing light from this place to that one? Conveys a meaning, and that meaning is in the form of a software, and that software is a protein. This particular language of this one, this particular segment conveying a specific meaning, we call is, the language is called as a genome, and we are nothing but a composite and interpretation of these 30,000 genes. Many genes, about 80 to 90,000, I am possessing, he is possessing, Professor Pasi is possessing, but only 30,000 out of that is expressing at that. How do they express? The rule can turn out to be that this thread of life, a segment of that one, which we call it as a gene, language known as a genome, express something chemically which we call it as a protein, and the DNA is linked through this particular thing by another molecule which we call it as RNA. I don't want to put complication, but ultimately the protein has to be linked. This is called as the central dogma, and not a doubt, which is central dogma, which is written like this. 3 Nobel Prizes only for this central dogma in 2 years, one to physicists, one to chemists, another to the medicine. This says that, look at the chromosome. I also carry 46 chromosome. Each one of you as a male carry 46 chromosome, 23 pairs, 22 plus I carry XY, the girls here carry the 2 X's. Forget that part. I stretch that one of this one, and this particular part of this one is D. But each segment is responsible for protein. But what is guiding What is guiding the specificity of the protein is the language of the DNA, which is ATGC, which has to be spelled right. Suppose I just tell my dear friends, my dear students, that yesterday night I went to Dr. Dharmveer's house and he served me rice, which were very, very delicious. The chicken rice was wonderful that way, though he is a vegetarian. But when I send this message to you on an email, unfortunately, I spell it, instead of rice, I spell it RIC. Instead of that, I put it as LICE. That makes a different hue, and you will start laughing that what did this professor eat yesterday night for the dinner? Did he take a bunch of lice or a group of lice? But the fact is, such things happen in proteins that way. The 30 years research has made us to make a small 3D-dimensional patternized, a patent movie also, which you see for the next 4 minutes, the movie. I would like first to give the commentary of that one without the movie, so that you can follow. The accent is little Europeanized because one of us, this was picturized, this was made at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, where you find background about this is that where you find 2 children are sitting on the steps of the auditorium of Indian Institute of Science. Indian Institute. One is a Caucasian. I hope you understand what is a Caucasian. Caucasian is a Gora child, coming from, let us say, Europe, England, Germany, or all these. And the second is a Negroid. Children, please, students, to note that all of us are separated into four sub-races, which we call it as a Caucasian, which you will see with the child. Then the next is the Negroid. The third is Mongoloid. Fourth are we. I just asked this question in Varanasi, that hum kaun hai, just to find out the answer from some of the students. I said, in case somebody can tell us who are we, then I'll give a chocolate, because I just came back from one of the European countries trip. One child in that corner, jaise idhar se bola na, he just stood up and said, sir, aap sardar ho. That is not a subspecies. All of us are dash, boliye, koi anybody? All of us are Australites. All of us. Okay. The 2 children, one is a Mongoloid, the second is Caucasian. They are sitting on the steps of Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. We, with the help of a laser equipment done through the Department of Physics, we enter into the eye cells of one of the Negroid. Second step, we enter into the eye cells of that one. We travel with the speed of almost light and lands up in one of the cells of the eyes of this student. Tear apart the cell membrane. That's yours. The cell membrane enters the nucleus, start traveling on one of the chromosomes, rip off the chromosomes and stretch it, and find that we are traveling with that particular speed on that chemical, which Crick and Watson are saying that it is a thread of life. This thread of life is producing a second messenger, a messenger which we call it as messenger RNA. This messenger RNA is the only molecule which comes out of the nucleus, comes inside the cytoplasm, where an organelle like ribosome is just waiting for this one and start reading its language like a computer. Converts the language of this messenger molecule through amino acid into a long chain of protein, a long chain of amino acid, which folds itself, and we call it as a protein, which does every function. We have only basically 2 functions to perform in our life. At the age of 67, I have performed only 2 functions, and all of you at a different level of ages have performed, that is only one function. That is either the catalytic or the structural. I am a structure and I am doing so many functions. Okay, and then the same molecule we come out of the eyes of the Negroid boy, showing that so far as the thread of life is concerned, it is one and all for everyone, and we extend it later to other species and genera level also. So this was the background about that movie. I hope it runs it. It doesn't have the same sort of a fate what Dr. Bagla's movies did it, but I'm sure, I wish and pray that this movie works with the sound. Okay, this is a Negroid and this is a Caucasian boy.
Exploring our molecular cells. Almost all of our cells, the muscle cells that let us smile, the brain cells that perceive the humor in things, the cells of our eyes that take it all in, contain a complete set of all our genes.
We enter into the eye zone. This is the entry to the, we land up in under the eye cell.
Journey inside our cell.
This is the eye cell.
We would see 23 pairs of chromosomes packed into a nucleus. Each chromosome contains a long coil of DNA. If all the chromosomes were unwound, the DNA in just one of our cells would stretch 6 feet long. The DNA double helix contains 4 kinds of building blocks. An A always pairs with a T, a C with a G. DNA contains information to make every part of our bodies with its 4-letter language. Each of our thousands of genes codes for a specific part. RNA polymerase copies the information in a gene into a messenger molecule.
This is inside the nucleus.
Messenger RNA. The building blocks of messenger RNA and DNA are called bases. The bases on one strand of the DNA specify the order of bases on the new strand of messenger RNA. The DNA always stays inside the nucleus, but messenger RNA travels out into the cytoplasm. There, a protein-making machine called a ribosome can read messenger RNA to make a particular protein. Every 3 bases of the messenger RNA molecule codes for an amino acid. Proteins are made of amino acids. tRNA molecules help translate the language of DNA and RNA into the language of proteins. tRNA molecules bring the right amino acids that the ribosome links together to make a protein. Proteins are the laborers. Some form structures like tendons and hair. Others perceive light, scents, and flavors, control chemical reactions, and carry messages between cells. To understand our molecular selves, scientists have read the 3 billion letters making up the DNA in the human genome. Different sets of genes interacting with complex environmental factors influence things like our looks, personalities, and risks for diseases like cancer and heart disease. A growing understanding of our genes and all they do will help us understand the complexity and the wonder of life. A simple friendship, a sunny day, a life.
Did you notice that we did enter through the eyes of the Caucasian and came out of the Negroid, showing that this is all a human made so far as the distribution of this thread of life is concerned. The things ended somewhere in 91, 92 so far as the total isolation of the genes was concerned. In 2000, exactly 2000, again it was 28th of February 2000, a press conference was held. Press conference was held under the name of what is called as the genome research. That was chaired by Tony Blair and Bill Clinton, the President of the United States of America. and they said only one word, and they said that today we are learning the language in which God created life. Now, here is a catch. This, as in our mythology, we have somebody who says Narayan, Narayan, Narayan. Narayan, who is he? Pardon? Nard Muni. He goes and tells everything to the Almighty God. In Catholic mythology, they have what is called as a Saint Luke. Saint Luke immediately goes to the God. Look at the Saint Luke going to Almighty God with the word, God, the human genome code has been unraveled. The gentleman, the president of USSA, we are learning the language in which God created life. Saint Luke immediately runs to the Almighty God and says, God, the human genome code has been unraveled. Godji is very naraj. Godji is very, very angry. He says, damn hackers, I will change the password. I'll change the password. But does the yesterday's lectures and today's lecture make you to believe that the genetic code is changing? That is for the discussion part. But the fact remains, it unites all of us. It unites, this thread of life unites all of us. This is our outside, the University of Cambridge, where a monkey is reading what is called as the origin of species, with the words coming out of that one, that all differences in the word are of degree and not of any kind, because oneness is the secret of everything. Oneness is the secret of everything. And what has happened this year, Nobel Prize function, what has happened, that they approved, this is my last slide, which they shows that this is a gentleman standing there, maybe this gentleman is standing there. When we compare the genome, the web of the life, the thread of life of this gentleman, Homo sapiens, maybe anyone sitting amongst you, when you compare it with the genome, it's a beautiful slide, but it has been stretched. When you compare it with that of the fruit fly Drosophila, 16% of the genome is common. You measure it with the yeast, it is 35% common. You have it somewhere with the apes, it is 85% of the common. The genes which are working in any of the unrelated organism, go and embrace the eucalyptus tree, telling that, oh eucalyptus, you are my distant cousin, because we have 61% of the genome which is common to all of us. This is how the web of the life, which unites one and all, shows that at the basic level, so far as life is concerned, it is the manifestation of a secret code which you have it as a sort of a custodian, which you will pass it to the next generation, but that will get reshuffled. That is why each one of you is different from their parents, because the shuffling has been done, but the basic chemical remains the same. The thread of life is nothing but a deoxyribonucleic acid. Thank you very much.
Sir, my name is Bhajan Prakash and I'm from Delhi. Sir, मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि अभी लेटेस्ट स्टडी में आया था कि 8.1% ऑफ आवर डीएनए इज फंक्शनल, रेस्ट ऑफ इज नॉट फंक्शनल. तो फिर वो जो फंक्शनल नहीं होता, तो फिर उसको हम फंक्शनल कैसे बनाएं? हाँ, उसको फंक्शनल कैसे कर सकते हैं, और वो कौन से करेक्टर होते हैं? क्योंकि मेरे हिसाब से तो सारे करेक्टर ही शो हो ही जाते हैं, तो उनकी ज़रूरत क्यों नहीं है?
बेटे भजन, your question is very relevant, very pertinent. I take you an example. If I take out the DNA out of you, if I take out, now you take your example. I take out a segment of DNA and find that this DNA segment is that of one of the virus, which we call it as rDNA virus. Okay. Like that, I start keeping on counting, copying. Then I find that there are some of the DNA segments which are some vestigial, which have come from, let us say, Drosophila, which have come from these. We call it as junk DNA. But this is the only link which proves that you are linked so far as a chain, a web of life is concerned. If I take out all your DNA, thinking that this is that of a foreign, this is that of a fruit fly, this is that of Periplaneta americana, this is that of this one, you will be left only with 2%. And with regard to the function of junk DNA, you were calling that one, that continues to remain a sort of a riddle, but they are finding that this gives the support at this time. Persons like Deepak Chopra calls it that this is what is the sustenance of life, probably the soul stays there. I don't want to go into the philosophical part, but more and more, so far as the functioning of yours is concerned, it is sufficient, but you are carrying whole this baggage. Baggage is that part.
सर तो उसकी हमें नीड नहीं है.
हमें नीड इस बिल्कुल नहीं है, क्योंकि जो जो फंक्शन आ रहे हैं, बट दैट इज ए जीन पूल. Gene pool is a very important word. The unit of evolution is a population, not you or I. It's a total population, and variation is the what we call it as a gene pool. वो junk DNA आप निकाल दीजिए. Yes, beta.
One thing.
Your name, please.
I'm Fayaz Ahmed from J&K.
Okay.
You told that the boy was asking question about the
Junk DNA.
we can say DNA which is not functional.
Which is
I
not.
can say these are the actually introns, because exons and introns are
Aye.
the different genes in our DNA.
Okay.
And exons are functional, which can make proteins,
Okay.
which can express,
Okay.
and introns cannot.
Yes.
But you told that this junk DNA, what you call, that it is maybe it may have come from Drosophila or some other species.
Minimum. मैं 84 लाख जूनों के साथ है, हम जुड़े हुए हैं उनके साथ.
But how can you prove it? Is any scientific proof or any theoretical concept that our DNA has come from another species?
Yeah.
I'm not satisfied with this your answer
Okay.
that our DNA came from other species like Drosophila or other animals or plants.
Okay. Is your question over now? Shall I
Okay,
reply?
oh, yes sir, yes sir.
He says that the junk DNA may be called as exon. When the messenger RNA is produced, it, let us say, for example, a mathematical one, it has, let us say, 500 nucleotides. Till this example is clear. 500 nucleotide with ATGC in a specific node. Out of then, the processing of this messenger RNA is done, in which certain parts are cut. Now, this is the cutting of not of DNA, but only of messenger RNA, which has been discarded is your intron, but the one which will now be synthesizing protein is your exon. So this is not coming from the junk DNA, but this is the processing of messenger RNA. You want a specific proof so far as whether that particular DNA has come or not. You look at the functioning of so many of bacteria, bacterial DNA, viral DNA. Once we cut it and put it, load it on the human genome, it starts synthesizing that. And when we do the hybridization experiment, it hybridizes, proving beyond doubt that there is no difference between this DNA, this particular sequence, and this. You are debating the theory of creation and that of evolution, which according to, I'm not quoting Charles Darwin, but we are not also refuting the creationism, who used to say, you know, there is a grandeur in this view of the world, with its several powers being originally breathed by the creator into few forms or into one, and that while this earth has gone on cycling according to the fixed laws of gravity, from so simple beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have evolved but from each other. That's the beauty.
Thank you, Professor Dua.
But from it. And never ever feel a doubt that a sequence of the DNA in your body has come from this one, because the hybridization experiments, they prove it beyond law, beyond particular any doubt that. You do the hybridization in simple molecular biology. Come to my lab and you will see that a gene of yours will be just hybridizing as, and there is no, look at the BT cotton. Look at the BT, from where the BT gene has come. From Bacillus thuringiensis bacteria का एक protein बनाता है, उसको हमने कर, but it's functional there. But I also have the some gene, but I don't have the receptor for that one. That's why it's not poisonous.
Thank you, Professor Dua.